Hello everyone, I'm here today to give you a tour of the craft room, so let's go in. So here we are in the craft room. So as many of you will probably know, this is actually a dedicated built room, a garden room if you like. So it's down the end of our garden, so it's separate from the main house. And it's been here for, I don't know, well over 10 years now, 12, maybe getting on 15 years. We originally built it for my husband. He started working from home and we needed a space for him to work because my daughter was very young at the time and it just wasn't practical for him to kind of be working and have, you know, things going on when there was a baby in the house, as has become recently a lot more relevant again. But yeah, at the time it made sense for us to sort of get him out into his own area, and we just didn't really have a space for him to work either in the house. So we did that, and then just as things have changed and his jobs have evolved and he's done different things, he ended up using it less, and I kind of clawed my way in here until we thought, well, actually it's a better use of space if I was in here. So yeah, so here we are. I have my own craft room out here. So let's show you around. So first up, in this corner here, the first thing to notice is we have a fridge in here. This wasn't in here originally. I did have a nice little chair in here so that I could do some knitting or crocheting up here. But just necessity meant that we needed a fridge, but that's fine. So I've popped my little blankets on top to decorate. So in this corner I've just got a random sort of selection of other oddments, really, that don't have anywhere to go. I've got these baskets, which are just for storage. I'll show you those in a moment. And this table, which was my nan's table. I really want to give this a bit of a refurb and put it in the house somewhere, but I haven't got anywhere good for it to go. So for now it sits up here. And these are just various different little bits of minis and wool and things that I haven't got space in other storage, and things just collect up. So a few little bits that I've got for Christmas, and these were just I found when I was clearing up the other day, tidying the room, so they're just sat there for now, and some extra washi tapes. This is a lovely selection of Stylecraft Naturals organic cotton that I got in a range of colours. To be honest, that was a bit of a splurge at Christmas. I just got them because I really liked the colours, and I do need to decide what I'm going to do with them next. So in these storage baskets I've mostly just got yarn. So in this top one I think I've actually got some space at the moment. So yeah, just a few spare bags, selection of yarns, some mohair there, and an old winder in the corner there. And in this basket here at the bottom I've mostly got 4-ply yarn, so lots of scrappy leftovers of 4-ply yarns, some minis in there that I haven't used yet, leftovers from other projects, a little bit of Stylecraft Special in there as well, but mostly it's just lots and lots of 4-ply, so when I'm making sort of scrappy projects and things that are using up 4-ply minis, this is why I've got all of these to work my way through. So this particular cabinet was an IKEA one. In fact, most of the furniture in here is from IKEA at some stage or another. That was one of the questions people asked me, was where did the furniture come from. So yeah, it's IKEA. So I'll just show you across that top section first. So here we have more 4-ply minis and leftovers. So these are just smaller amounts. I try and group it roughly by how much I've got left. So these will be less than 20 grams. These I've all kept in their original minis. So this is my lovely elderflower advent from this Christmas just gone. And this is this side here is the Fibre Fox one from a couple of years ago. And then I've just got these lovely beehive minis on here. This is a crochet cactus I made from the Emma Varnum book, Crocheted Cactuses and Succulents, I believe. And these are just some old knitting needles that I've got, a lot of which just came from my nan, a few wooden ones that came in the set. I don't really use straight needles very often anymore, but I've just put them there because I quite like the look of them. And then if we go over to this side, more minis, surprise, surprise. So a few of my little pot holders I made, my painted anemones pot holders in a pile. I was going to put those up maybe on the wall somewhere here, like I have some on this side here, so maybe I'll put some on there, but I haven't got around to that yet. So yeah, so these are just a random selection of various minis I have got. A lovely little bear from my Stitchery advent quite some time ago. Just another couple of needles in there. And this is my leftover from my West Green Loss and my Dandelion and Dogwood advent, which I think was around, I don't know, 2020, 2019 maybe. I used half of them in a knitted project, and then I had plans to use them for another baubles and berries this Christmas, but I just never got it started. So maybe next year, maybe they'll become something else, I don't know. So that's the top. I'm not sure quite how much good stuff I've got to show in here. This one, as you can see, is mostly, this cupboard here is mostly various bits of fabric. So I've stored some fabric in there, and then behind is pretty much the same, although generally plainer and not so interesting fabrics. In this top thing, what have we got in here? Other bits of fabric. So this is fabrics that I've kept and I haven't cut up yet. So quite often I keep bits of old clothes and things, and I sort of keep it till I've cut all the, you know, seams or sleeves off or whatever and turned it into usable fabric. So they've stored up in there. And in here we've got my stash of stone washed yarn. So that's my sheep ear stone washed yarn, which I used for my painted anemones, and I did my painted roses in a version of that as well. That's really pretty. So in here basically is mostly this blanket. I made this quite some time ago, you might recognise it. I have it in some of my header pictures sometimes. Yeah, so that's mostly sat in there, and along with some other old crochet patterns that I've done and I'm not currently wearing, or, you know, I've just put away into storage for a little bit. But if they're from a pattern, I like to keep hold of them. There's always that chance you'll get a pattern query and you think, oh, I better check. Then in this side we have some tissue paper for packing things up when I send them. Some other fabric, that's bed sheets that I've kept for dressmaking. You know, trials of dressmaking. And then down the bottom here I've just got some of my crocheted hangers, so wooden hangers with crochet covers on, that I just use if I want to hang something up and look pretty on a photo. And I've got some of this wire stuff. I was going to put a little curtain on the inside of these glass cupboards. Yeah, with the fabric inside, there's quite a bit of light comes through that window, so I meant to put a cover to stop fading, but yeah, I haven't actually got around to that yet, so maybe this fabric will fade. I've tried, it does tend to, it only gets a little bit of sun, but I just thought it would make it look tidy if I had little curtains in front. So over here, basically we've just got my desk. Again, that's an IKEA one, not an awful lot to say about that. And I've got some of these Alex drawers, again from IKEA. I think they're called Alex anyway, which are quite useful. Little insert, And just various storage bits, stickers, notepads and so on. Oh, and my mitts for if I'm working up here and I do feel a bit chilly, I can put some mitts on just to take the edge off. Although that's another question I have had before about working up here, what it's like to work up here and whether it gets cold. It is insulated, not as well insulated as a house. It does get cold. So we just have this little heater here. It's quite a small little heater. I leave it on low, very low all the time, just to take the edge off, so you know, if it's a frosty morning it doesn't sort of affect everything in the room. So that just stays on low. And then when I come up here and it's cold, I just turn the temperature up. It's got a little setting on the end there, and I can just turn the temperature up, and it gets toasty hot in minutes. Yeah, it's never a problem working here in the cold. Just thought I'd face you while I was talking to you again. Yeah, the only time I ever have any problem working up here weather-wise is when it's in the heat of summer, because it doesn't cool down brilliantly, and it's got these big vast windows along this side. And until the sun goes sort of round, they kind of heat it up almost like a conservatory type feel. So in spring, brilliant, because it gets warm up here, you don't even need to use the heater. But then if it's a very hot day, like most of the time in summer, it's got double doors, I can open those and that's fine, just have those wide open, that's quite nice. But yeah, on a hot day though, it's just too hot. I just don't bother to come up here. We're in the UK, so that excludes, what, a couple of weeks mostly. Yeah, so that's the biggest problem, is cooling it down up here rather than heating it up. Heating it up is no problem. Right, let's carry on. Where were we? So like many of you no doubt, I have got one of the IKEA trolleys. This is mostly just filled with junk, albeit lovely crafty junk, but junk nonetheless. Yeah, just bits of ribbons. I've got threads in there, cottons, pin cushions, scissors. And then in the one below, let's go down a little bit. This is actually where I keep a lot of my spare hooks and needles. I've got crochet hooks in that one. This is I just recently got this. My mum had this, and it was her mum's before. And it's just got a load of, look at those fine crochet hooks. Yeah, so just a load of old crochet hooks in there. I just kept it because it's sentimental, really. So this one's knitting needles, and I think I've got a selection of other bits of interchangeables, sock needles, and goodness knows what in there. And this is also where Bertie's little bed is, look, just down there. That's where he sleeps and curls up. It's actually quite sunny outside, so he's curled up outside at the minute. I wouldn't have said it was that warm myself, but there you go. And then at the very bottom here, I've just got a selection of some of my project bags that I've either made or bought or been given over the years, so lots of lovely project bags in there. So then we're round to my crafting shelves. So here I have got, this is crochet and knitting books, and these ones are sewing and quilting books. And then I've just got yarn pretty much everywhere in between. And then in the boxes, in this one I've got ribbons. This one is scrappy trims, so trims that I've salvaged from other clothes or something or another. Here I've got trims, so that's just brought stuff, ribbons and things I've brought. And this one is threads. I've also got two boxes here. These have just got buttons in, sorted into colours and things in jars. So all of those boxes are actually from IKEA, with the little dividers and everything, so they were brilliant. They're really good for keeping stuff organised. I don't think they do them anymore. Yeah, I hope they bring them back again because they were really good. Now just to take you to this last shelf here, so this will be a bit more familiar from the podcast, but more yarn, again just a few, some of my little favourite bits and pieces up there. And then at the top, this is a newer edition, but this is where I've kept some fabric and garment sewing patterns. So I never used to have that before. I just had sewing, you know, little bits and pieces I would do for sewing. But when I started getting a few garment patterns, I've just sort of made a little dedicated section for that. So Daki from Wool and the Forest was actually asking me about that, like how do I organise the different crafts. So knitting and crochet kind of is just everywhere all the time, and then the sewing bits, it kind of comes down to some boxes, which I'll show you in a minute, but that's the kind of, that was where the garment sewing section is now, a new section. And then most of the rest of my organisation comes down to these boxes here. So if I do have different crafts like embroidery or whatever else, I've generally kind of tried to keep things together in these boxes. So let's see if I can quickly run through these for you. So in this side I've got the embroidery and paper piecing box. It's not very pretty. When I tidied it was just a case of just getting everything into some kind of order. I haven't had a chance to go through all the boxes as well. But I've got some cross stitch material in here. I've got some paper piecing shapes. I've got a load of embroidery threads in this tin here. Some embroidery hoops. I think this is a little tin with some hexagons in down there. So that's all together in that one. This one is all sort of decorative little bits that can be sewn on. So sequins, beads, applique bits. I think that might have some jewellery things in there. The beads are quite organised. They've all got these little things that they're in. So that's kind of cool, but I never use them anymore. I was into it at some point for something. I've got toy eyes there if I do ever make a toy. But yeah, just various little sew-on applique bits and bobs. They all go together in there. Then on this side we've got lace and doilies I put on here. Oh, so this literally is doilies. So there's a, you know, if I ever go to a car boot sale or a little antique fair thing, I'll just see if they've got any doilies and pick those up, and those sort of little old embroidered tablecloths or antimacassars that you sometimes see. So I collect those up. I've used those on projects before. I did a tablecloth with doilies all on the top. And then in here I've just got fabric scraps. So literally just scraps of bits I've used, and might be able to find a use for a little bit of again. In this one we have felt and templates, so literally just some sheets of felt, and then if I ever do any, like a little paper template of a heart or something like that, I'll pop it in there. This one, again, zips and fastenings, isn't very pretty. I think there's mostly zips in this tin, and then other sort of fastenings, little handles, poppers. I think I've got some, what are these things called? You know, where you punch the hole. I can't think of the name at the minute. That sort of thing is all in there. Then in here we have just stuffing and wadding, literally what it says. So this side you can see I couldn't get the same IKEA boxes with the nice little handles and everything, so I just had to go for these plain ones. But I've just got a more heavier weight fabric in there, so a bit of denim and some, you know, heavier cotton. This is yarn where I've got more than one hank, so I've got a little bit where I've got about 4 sweater quantities here. These are all 2s. So a little aside about yarn storage actually. People were asking me how I stored yarn. So this is all 4-ply yarn. So I try to store it either, if it's a commercial yarn, I tend to try and keep the same kind of brand together, because quite often for crochet I'll have a lot of different colours and I want them all together. My 4-ply I've got lots of individual skeins for, so they just go on these shelves. I've got a few little grouped bits on here, but this is all 4-ply up on this shelf. I do have some double knit that were in the sort of wickery baskets that I showed you. And I have a few other bits in the house as well, but yeah, I'll try to keep them sort of together by weight primarily, and then slightly by fibre. I did have, like, I tend to keep the mohair separate mostly. I did have a shelf up here where I had sort of more mohairs and kind of more luxurious yarns, like more the ones with cashmere in or silk. I did have them all separated out at one point, as opposed to sort of just regular 4-ply sock yarn, like merino nylon type stuff, which is what I'd normally get, I suppose. I did have that just on these shelves, but I've since put it all together just for space reasons, and I wanted to fit these in. Back to these boxes, and I think this is the only other one useful I've put on here. So this is my what do you call it, sort of backing, interfacing, and another bit of hessian apparently. God knows why I've got so much of that. I've got some elastic in here, a bit of velcro, things like that, so just useful sewing bits and pieces. Also, I missed a box up here. This is my reclaimed fabrics, as I've called it. So where I was saying I sometimes keep like shirts or bits of, you know, when she was younger I used to keep my daughter's dresses because she'd have pretty fabric on her dresses. So once I've got the useful fabric from them, I keep that in here. And then down here is most of my sort of quilting cotton stash. So and that's basically organised by colour. I used to have these all stacked in a shelf back in my sort of first podcast. If you ever watched those, you might see them there. Yeah, so these again are all IKEA boxes. I'm going through the rainbow. I like it because it's pretty, but also it is useful when you want to find fabrics to coordinate for a project. You know, if you think, oh, I'd like to pull a bit of pink into this, you know that you've got all the pink ones together, sort of the warm pinks going to the cooler ones. And then right at the bottom, very bottom, some more reclaimed fabrics, just smaller pieces. And then I think just a random assortment of other bits, a few Christmas fabrics there. And last of all, we're back round to my sewing machine. So I've just put this blanket over here to keep some of the dust off while I'm not working in this blanket while it's in hibernation. But this is my new sewing machine that I got last year. It's got the table on and everything. Yeah, which is a lot better than my old one, which was, well, not quite giving up the ghost, but it's seen better years, put it that way. So to finish, I thought I would just go through some of the questions I got when I posted about maybe doing an afternoon tour. So let's see what we've got here that I haven't covered. So Be Creative by the Lake wanted to know, what task lighting do you use? Basically I don't. Daylight. I've got this little lamp up here which is all right, but it just throws off quite a yellowy glow, and I have put some more fairy lights up here now, so hopefully I can use the craft room. So in winter, you know, it gets dark early. If I've been doing some sewing projects up here, I've just had to stop and come away, so I have got some more fairy lights up now to try and help with that, but yeah, I haven't got anything specific. Although when I was doing like the English paper piecing and the embroidery over Christmas, I really did feel like I needed something, especially when I was doing it over Christmas, because obviously the light's so rubbish at that time of year here in the UK. Yeah, so I need to think about that, if I need to do more of that. Chapeau wants to know, what do you use to protect against moths? I've just got lavender sachets, so the yarn that I've actually just got out open on the shelves like that, I've just got loads of lavender sachets between. The stuff in the wicker basket, I've got some lavender in there as well, although not probably enough really. And then most other things, I think everything, yeah, I think everything's sort of pretty much got at least some lavender in. Whether that's enough, I don't know. Or I've got a few bits in some plastic bags and boxes and things, but yeah, that's all I've got. I haven't had a problem, but then of course I don't suppose you do until you do you? So hope that's enough. The Canny Magpie would like to know fabric stash and pattern cutting space. So fabric stash we've covered. Pattern cutting, I've just got one of those flexible cutting mats, so I just do that up on the desk here. Leslie Blonde would like to know, do I tend to crochet or knit more out in this room or in the house? So I do all my crafting down at the house. Like I said at the beginning, I did have a little chair in that space where the fridge now is, but I just didn't use it a lot. Most of my day-to-day cherry hearting, if you like, is on the computer. Yeah, so I come up here to do that, to work. I just bring my laptop up, or I come up here to sew, and then most of my, well, the vast majority of my crafting I just do sort of evenings and weekends down at the house. So yeah, don't tend to do much of that up here. Crochet Spinner wants to know, how do I store and display my stitch markers? They are down at the house. So I'll put in a little bit of footage. I've got like a little bowl where I keep a lot of my little cute progress keepers, the little pretty ones, so they're just on the side by me. And then I've got some like the round stitch markers and other progress keeper I've just got in a couple of tins. So they're just in the drawer beside me. So Eifelwick wanted to know, a bit random, but what size is it? So it is 4 by 3 meters, so it's 4 meters down this side, and then we've got the window which is inset a bit, so it's 3 meters, but inside we only get about 2.7, I think. I don't know what that is in feet and inches, I'm afraid. I only do inches for quilting and yards for yarn. I don't know about everything else. I'm pretty much metric. Where do you store your little bits of leftover yarn and minis? Mine get so tangled. That's from Hendra Harbour. Yes, I know, me too. Well, you've kind of seen how I stored it. I've got minis out everywhere, and I've got some yarn balls in here and just in bags. That's fine when they're just sat there, isn't it? But then when you try and rifle through and look for a colour, yes, they do. Mine come apart a bit too. The best thing is if you can keep them in minis as long as possible, because they stay together, but that isn't always possible. What else have we got? Oh, P Barnes wants to know, where did you get the butterfly display hanging on the wall, please? So that's this one. That is from Jules's shop, So Sweet Violet. So I got it from her shop. And Ecognito wanted to know, how do you store your notions, sewing and knitting? So again, most of those are down by the house. I showed in the like the little IKEA trolley. I've got some things in pouches there, but yeah, a lot of them I've made little what's the word, cases, so needle cases. I've sort of sewn up needle cases, and I normally keep them in those really, and yeah, and just in pouches and things. I've got like a little zip pouch that I keep my crochet hooks in. Again, that's down at the house. Right, I hope that's answered most of the questions. I don't think I've gone through all of them, but I feel like this is getting quite long now, so I'll probably leave it there for now, and I'll just have to answer some more next time. But thanks ever so much for being here. Thank you for watching. I hope I showed you everything you wanted to see, and I'll probably see you on the next podcast. Bye.